Hi, I'm Jake Compton. I'm the owner of the Harrisburg Improv Theater, or the HIT as we call it. I've been here doing shows every Saturday night since September of 2014. Long form improv, which is what we do here, is it's just magical when it goes right, which, when you have people who are trained and a good team that works well together, it goes right a lot. And I've always been driven to create artistry. I don't know why I shouldn't say artistry. I sound like fucking Kanye West. I've always been driven to create. I don't know if it's just being in the middle of a family of 10 children, so trying to put myself out there somehow. But music is my first love, and my favorite music has the same kind of feel to it. My favorite recordings, if you listen to like a Rolling Stone, that was just lightning in a bottle. It was like, for that one moment it was captured. And that's what I love about improv, is that it's about that one moment, and it'll never happen again. So that's why I do improv. Why do I do improv in Harrisburg? It's because that's where I live. This is where my family is. I live in the city. I studied improv in New York at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater and also the Magnet Theater, and I was really in love with the glimpse of the scene that I saw while I was up there taking classes, and I sort of always thought Harrisburg will never have that because it's a small city and we don't have an influx of people trying to get famous acting like New York does all the time. So I sort of in an abstract way used to think that would be cool, but it would never work around here. But here I am doing this. We're able to do it in part because of really cheap real estate in Harrisburg, which, maybe our former mayor was onto something with this Wild West Museum, because Harrisburg is a bit like the Wild West in that if you're willing to come here and make it your home and kind of carve out a space, there are opportunities that you don't have in other places around. See, I had pretty much not done very much improv at all since I quit taking classes in New York about 8 or 9 years ago. So my wife would tell me every maybe 2 years, like, why don't you do something? Why don't you do something with improv? And the local offerings, while I'm not detracting from them, were not enough to lure me away from music, because just coming from New York in that scene, I was just like wanting to do it at that level and that scope, and just the idea of putting effort into it being like a side thing of a huge theater that also does everything wasn't really the vibe I was looking for in improv. I've been going pretty hard at music for a while, and it just sort of like there was a natural progression where the bands I was in, the collaborations I was in, weren't having a lot of energy infused into them by the other partners, so it just sort of like was a natural time to like look around me and say, well, let's get something started in another way. So I reached out to a local place called the Make Space, and I called the lady who ran it, and I said, hi, I'd like to teach an improv class in your space. Do you think that's something you'd be open to? She said, yes, definitely, and you can do that, but there's someone who already teaches a class that sounds pretty much like the same thing you're talking about offering here. So why don't I introduce you guys and see how you hit it off? And that's how I met my artistic director. His name's Paul Barker. And from there, our first conversation, he was sort of standoffish and was kind of like, I don't really want to necessarily jump into bed with you, I don't know you, which I understand. I was sort of like, well, I have 2 kids and a full-time job and everything, so I don't need to be the guy, let's work something out. So he was like, well, why don't you take my class that I'm offering? So that's what I did. At the time I felt a little bit like Luke Skywalker when he sort of left Dagobah without completing his training. That's what I felt like when I left New York. Like I just wasn't quite there, but I had a lot of the mindsets of a Jedi, if you will. Paul and I took his class, and then afterwards we like sort of started a troupe, and then I bought this building, and the two of us came down here, and it was just one big empty room with only one door to it over here, and there was a really weird little side room. And at first I was overwhelmed. I was like, this sounds awesome, but there's no way like I'm gonna have time to invest in that, because I was worried. In my mind, I just want like to have the grand opening. And Paul and my wife, whose name is Summers Compton, said, just do what you can do, and like we'll build the thing slowly. And that's actually how we had to build it too, because we had to build up a base of performers, so we had to offer classes. And the classes then also helped to give us enough funding to get the thing going. So we sort of built up our performing base, we built up the space, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So we did that for about 6 months, and then we launched shows every Saturday night. And I kept waiting for the Saturday night when no one was going to come, and all the performers would look at each other and say, well, I guess we'll just go home now. And it hasn't happened yet, and something tells me it's not going to happen. And I really fell in love with the city. I mean, playing chess on my next door neighbor's front porch, or just walking to the river and being close to things. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, nothing but trees around my house. So living close to things is really wonderful. In New York, I studied with people who I see on TV and in the movies all the time. I've seen them in The Office, other movies, and it was just such a wonderful experience. And I actually commuted to New York for those classes. And so I went up there, and it really, changed my way of looking at the world. And like I said, I knew what an improv scene could look like, and I always longed to have that experience, but I just sort of thought it would never happen in Harrisburg. And sort of the climate in Harrisburg was right for it, and myself and my artistic director meeting, that was like another thing, and then buying the building, just the three of those things sort of coming together. Really, I can read the writing on the wall, and I consider the hit a smashing success so far. I mean, I must have put 200 flyers out and got one student out of it, and we were sort of like a voice in the wilderness crying out for a while, and then but now that people come here, they look around, they say, oh wow, this is what I'm getting to be a part of. And we're just starting to also tap into a whole nother thing that is like improv and the lessons learned and how valuable they are outside of performance. I've had college professors take this class to just work on their communication skills. I've had shy people take my improv classes so they can just sort of come out of their shell. I've had just people who just moved to Harrisburg who have no friends be like, well, wow, look at this, Wait, there's a friend group right here we can just quickly jump into. And a lot of people really talk highly about what improv has done for them in the last year or two, over the last year. And people going through some hard times, kind of having something to look forward to every Saturday night, and also if you take a class every, Wednesday night or whatever, it's really been a positive thing in a lot of people's lives. So I have children, and watching children play, you can learn a lot about improv, because when kids play good, it's just, I'm the princess, you're the evil stepmother, and one says, yes, and that kid is the knight, and they just go. And that's what improv teaches, is to affirm what's put before you and build on that. When kids play bad, it's, I'm the princess. No, I'm the princess. And it's the same thing with the improv scene. When people are, not on the same page and they're not whatever, but when people do learn to affirm and to play these sort of games on stage with each other, it taps into like a part of their like brain that they haven't used since childhood. We've had in our evaluations of our classes that we give out to students afterwards, one just simply wrote, "Thanks for teaching me how to be a kid again."